excited for our next lightning talk under the Leave No One Behind headline. LGBTIQ plus youth remain systematically excluded, marginalized, and discriminated in development, human rights, and society in Africa. Our next speaker will give them voice in this talk, Queer Awakening, Unheard Stories of LGBTIQ plus Youth. Please welcome Coordinator of Success Capital Organization, Demisho Gotcha.
Last week, I started aging out on my birthday. I found myself singing in a karaoke bar, and as a result, found myself in a competition. And whilst in this competition, I never realized that it was more about popularity and not necessarily talent. But the beauty about this karaoke experience was the fact that I could actually win 5,000 Kenyan shillings. And so there I was, singing out Unchained Melody and ensuring that everyone could hear my voice. The beauty about this exercise is that when shortlisted, I was competing against two other ladies, and they were Kenyan, but me and my rainbow self, with my poncho and dramatic as ever, was sitting there trying to get people to support me. As the MC was asking individuals who they want to vote for, it was do me, and Mona, Mona. Those were the two biggest competitors in that room. A heterosexual, very, very Christian and traditional crowd. And so you can imagine, in that nervousness, in a country that isn't my own, and trying to figure out if I would actually make the cut according to popularity. And as the MC went into the crowd and kept on asking individuals, each one kept on saying, Mona, 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 my competitor. But for some reason, when she took it back to the plenary, I could hear my name. In the end, I won, so that was exciting. And as I got back, then I asked my friends. So we were at an accelerator campaign training. And so my one friend from South Africa and my one friend from Burundi then told me that they were actually lobbying. And that brought so much insight into the human rights work of today, is that in many instances, the work that we do might be personal, but it really is political. Political in channeling resources, political in coordinating governance, political in ensuring and safeguarding the human rights of those who are most marginalized, discriminated against, and subject to the worst kinds of violations. Queer Awakening is over 100 hours of conversations, storytelling across Botswana, where over 80% of participants were very proud to be Motswana. They could not separate being African with being gay, queer, non-binary, or trans. And that says so much. They're patriotic. They're individuals who pay taxes. But no one hears of these stories. And the beauty about understanding some of these dynamics is the reality that these are individuals who exercise their agency when, unfortunately, they can afford it. What does that actually mean? In environments that legislatively ensure you can either pay your way out, what does that then mean for those who are impoverished? In environments where your own parent, when the Court of Appeal says these laws are essentially from colonial era times, but then each and every single morning you're reminded about abomination, reminded about morality. How will this one individual be able to navigate the complexities of the workplace environment, peer pressure, adolescence, or spiritual refuge when they're consistently reminded that they cannot belong or become in their environments? Yet they are unequivocally African and unapologetically queer. And it is within this context that we sit and we realize we need to be occupying other spaces of governance. We should no longer be speaking of human rights, but of Ubuntu and Boto, which is reflected in our own culture, first and foremost, and that it is no longer convenient for people to accept specific passages in religious scripts and ignore the others that speak of love, belonging, togetherness, and home. But this is no different to voting for the politician that gives you empty promises. This is no different from the one gatekeeper that might dictate what advocacy work is relevant or invalid within your country context. More importantly, in acknowledging the fact that human rights work is really quite political, we need to acknowledge that there is a need for us to exercise the agency beyond the responses in public health, and that health in itself is a result of the rest of the ecosystem. In working with partners, we're essentially achieving SDG 17, and then in ensuring that we can challenge some of the inequalities in strategic litigation or even in traditional courts. Why is it acceptable that someone must wear a dress according to the aesthetic of how they look? In a day and era of democratic governance, aspiring socioeconomic rights, and ensuring that everyone can become to the fullest of their potential, is it okay that others must have additional struggles, despite the fact that there's so many other socioeconomic complexities? And why is it okay that development must be a school of thought or a concept of work that's separate from human rights? It is a reality. And if we can bring together these two worlds, this essentially acknowledges the fact that as an individual, I can safeguard my own dignity despite some of the issues that I have to navigate, while still ensuring that I can contribute to a better world that can be of importance, and that can be the kind of world that is enabling, that can allow for people to thrive, for people to contribute in other ways, as opposed to those that are sexualized and politicized. Queer awakening acknowledges the individual for who they are without some of the politics and the unfortunate realities that they face every single day. And so it's in reshaping these narratives that we acknowledge we want to access UNGA, the high-level political forum, and other spaces beyond just that, because a few days ago, we had the Political Declaration on Universal Health Coverage. And in ensuring that this visibility is in these spaces of governance, we can better assert our rights, not necessarily demand, because these should be expected, as is in international law and the interdependency of the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Demiso Gotcha. We can see why you won karaoke. And I have to say, I was reading that intro and I got verklempt thinking about making voices heard, and it's wonderful that this week, this entire week, all 5 of these days, we're getting to do that here. So I hope you're enjoying the SDG Action Zone as much as I am, because it is full of surprises, and they're wonderful.